Welcome to the Training Room. I'm your host, Paul Tremlin. This is a podcast show presented by Extreme Baseball and Softball Club, where myself, network trainers, and other special guests will discuss player and coach development topics, as well as how to win it right on and off the field. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the show.
Today is going to be episode 4, and I'm here with Chris Fair again, who is, if you guys didn't watch episode 3, the youth baseball director of Extreme Baseball and Softball Club. You're also the head coach for 16U Elite National Baseball Team for
sir.
Extreme as well. And so, first of all, welcome back.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks
to
for
the
having
show.
me back. Yeah.
And we're going to go ahead and cover part 2 today. And for those who have not listened or watched episode 3, which covers part 1 of youth sports, the marathon mindset, then you need to go do that right now. We're going to be talking about the next 2 phases. Before we get there, I want you to go ahead and recap for us what part 1 was all about.
Yeah, Paul. So we were talking about this idea of running the marathon as a youth coach, and what that's important for us to understand is that when we are developing young athletes through really any sport, but we've been talking a little bit more specifically baseball and softball here. We have to think of it as it's a long-term journey. It's a long-term ride. So we have to think of it that way. That's that's the whole mindset that we have to have is that when I'm taking an athlete from 5, 6, 7 years old all the way up through junior high, high school, maybe into college, or if they have dreams of playing professionally one day, I have to think of it as a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not a season by season type of mentality. I've got to think of it holistically, and I got to think about it in the long term. So we started talking about that a little bit last week or last time, and then we went into this idea of culture. And if or any youth sports environment, I have to create a positive culture. I have to create a culture that is inclusive to coaches and players and families, and families of players, parents of players. We have to create an environment where we're there to help build the athlete again for the long term. And when we do that, we avoid some of the pitfalls that we see with youth sports when coaches decide to sprint rather than to run the marathon.
There you go. Yeah. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to go into phase 2, where you were talking about building a team the right way. And so phase 2 is going to focus on development. You've established a culture as a coach, the right culture. Now it's time for coaches to focus on the development of their athletes. So let's start our deep dive into phase 2.
Yeah, so now that we've set the groundwork of having a understanding that we're in this for the right reasons, that we're running the marathon, that we have now established a culture with our team, with our coaching staff, with our parent group. We've established the correct culture that we would like to see. So now we have to develop. Now we do have to allow athletes to thrive and allow athletes to get better, because if we want them to run this marathon and we want them to continue to play this game for a long period of time, they do have to get better, right? They do have to excel. So as they get older, the funnel gets smaller. They get into junior high ball, and now they have to kind of funnel into a certain school district. Same thing when they get to high school. Then maybe if they have dreams of playing college ball or professional ball, the funnel continues to get smaller. So as we take our athletes up through their life, we have to make sure that we are continuing to allow them to develop so that they can continue to play the game. And then we all know that if we're better at the game and we are having some success in the game, then we enjoy the game more and we want to continue to play. So that's an important part for our athletes that are in sports. For our cases, baseball and softball. We want them to continue to play, not only because we believe that they can excel in those sports, but because we believe that there are a lot of characteristics and a lot of life lessons and a lot of things that they learn through those sports. And so we need them to continue to play. And so for them to do that, we have to be able to develop them.
So I'm a coach. I bought already into the fact that I need to build the right culture. And now I'm being bought into, I got to focus on developing my athletes. What are some practical steps that I, as a coach, can go through to help my athletes develop?
Yeah, so I think that first thing we have to kind of just get out in the open is that when we're talking about development and we're talking about coaching, we have to understand that all of us sit in a different spot when it comes to our knowledge of the game or our experience inside of the game, whatever that sport might be. So I think that we have to get that out on the table first. That this youth athletics brings all kinds. We will have some coaches that maybe played a lot of ball growing up or played in college or maybe professionally, and they feel like they have a pretty solid knowledge base of the game. And then we have some that really may not. They may just be willing to create the right culture and create a team and create the ability for athletes to get better. And we need those kind of coaches as well. But they may not feel like they have this wealth of knowledge to share with their players. And so I think that what we got to understand is that's okay. Whatever level we're sitting in, that's okay. What's important for us to all understand is that we all have to have the growth mindset of we need to get better ourselves to allow our athletes to get better. In this day and age, there are so many resources out there, information that maybe a club that you would be involved in provides, kind of like we do with Extreme, or there is a wealth of internet resources. There's a wealth of coaches clinics. There's a wealth of information out there, books and podcasts and so on and so forth. So the information is out there. We just have to be willing to want to go and get that information and to be able to kind of use it wisely. So I think that's the first thing, is that as coaches we have to be willing to say, okay, if I want my players to continue to get better, I have to want to continue to get better as well, just in my knowledge and in the way that I do things. So I think that's the first one. Then I think from a team perspective, we have to commit to training as a team. There is a difference between reps practice and a practice where we are implementing new things, where we are learning, and there's room for both inside of the game, but what we have to be willing to focus on is the details, the development. What are those things that we can teach to get our players from where they are to the next step?
We're going to go ahead and we're going to enter into our first segment of the day. We're going to go into Tweet of the Week, where Coach Fair is going to talk about how coaches can, in fact, better develop themselves so they can better develop their athletes. So we'll be back after the break.
Hey guys, welcome to Tweet of the Week. So we've been talking about player development and the development mindset from a coach, and so I wanted to share just a very simple tweet with you. This tweet is from Coach Josh Hayes, and I don't personally know Coach Hayes, but I think that what he posted here just speaks to the mindset of development and of growth, okay? So he took a video of a lecture that he saw at the ABCA convention, and he just tweeted that drill, and he said, learn this drill at ABCA in January 2019. Excited to start baseball season at my new school tomorrow and start these guys out with this drill. Okay, so he basically is just pointing out, hey, I'm learning as a baseball coach. I'm going to take those things and I'm going to implement them with my players to become better. And that's the basis of player development, right? Is that we all have knowledge to share. There's so much knowledge out there that we can find, and we can use that knowledge to develop our players.
Welcome back from the break. A lot of coaches talk about how development is an easy topic to focus on in the off season, during the winter, early spring. Once they get to the season, though, this is where a lot of coaches feel like they run into some roadblocks, or they feel like, now I can't focus on development, I just have to compete. Or maybe they don't know how they can transition what they see on the field into practice to help their athletes continue to develop. So let's go ahead, let's dive to in-season development.
Yeah, so and absolutely right that there is a balance there. Whenever we get in season, we obviously start playing more, we start practicing a little bit less, and so we can find sometimes that there is a little bit of a challenge in developing athletes when we are in season. So we have to focus on that a little bit more. We got to think about it a little bit harder as we're going through the season. Obviously, the natural thing that coaches think about is practice, right? If I'm going to develop an athlete, they have to be able to practice and not just get game reps, right? So I have to make time in our schedule to be able to do that. We should still have a weekly practice, even if we are playing in a league or we're playing tournaments or whatever. We have to still make time to get together as a team and say, okay, here's some things that we've been seeing in the games, and here are the ways that we're gonna, develop that or help us to become better by that, So one, we got to look at our schedule. We got to look at our schedule and make sure that it's appropriate, because again, we see examples of it all the time when athletes at a young age play too much. A lot of times they peak rather early in the season, and then really the back 2/3 to 1/3 of the season is just kind of a downhill slide. They see their development go down, they see their success go down, their attitude deteriorates a little bit. So we have to make sure that we are creating a schedule that allows a good balance of playing, having fun, competing, but then also time spent practicing and learning together. And I think the second part is just as coaches, we have to be very intentional with the way that we manage games. One, to allow for development, right? To allow for some development, but then two, to also recognize when development is needed. Okay, so I'll kind of talk about those two real quick. When I say allow for development, I mean that we have to, if we want our athletes to develop, we have to put them in situations to be able to develop, okay? And I know we're not talking, this isn't a playing time or a lineup management talk today, and we can do that another day if we want to, but we do have to think of, as coaches, when we're in game, we have to think about, okay, who's playing what positions, when are they playing those positions, and where do I want to see those athletes develop, and so that can be part of it. That can be part of our in-season development is making sure that we're allowing the right opportunities for development pieces to happen. If we don't allow an athlete the opportunity to develop, then they won't develop. And then I think the second thing is, during those games, when we're inside of those games, really focusing on not just being a spectator, not just, okay, what's happening, are we winning, are we losing, but really looking at each play, everything that's happening on the field, and looking at ways that we can improve, okay? And at the same time, looking at things that we're doing really well already. So we can praise those things. We can spend our time on, talking about, hey, the hard work we've put into those, and look how good we've gotten at these skills or these situations. But then taking that a step further and recognizing, okay, we could be better at this. We could be better at this. This player struggles with this. Kind of making that list of things that we can get better at, and then using what we see to write our next practice plan. To use that as our next steps towards development of our athletes.
All right, so we're going to go into our next segment, drill of the week, where you're going to go ahead and give us a little bit of a walkthrough of what the back of your scorecard looks like, and how you can go from in-game, moments and wins and things that you need to work on, and then transition that into practice development plans. So we'll be back after the break.
All right, guys, so we're going to do our drill of the week here. And again, because we're talking a little bit more about, creating a culture in youth sports, and specifically in this segment, we've been talking about how to develop athletes. I want to talk a little bit today about how we can keep our minds right in the game towards developing athletes, okay? So I've got a whiteboard up here. I want you to think of this as the back of a lineup card, okay? So this is kind of how I use it in a game. On the back of my lineup card, I like to keep some notes, and it just helps me to, when I see those things in the games that either I want to praise or areas that I want to make sure that I put into practice to work on, I'll kind of write those down on the back of my lineup card, and we will use that to develop a practice plan, right? So just give you a little glimpse of the back of my lineup card here. So one, I always write the umpires' names on the top of the card. Just good to always know who your umpires are if you ever have to have a conversation. Shout out to a couple dudes there. And then below that, I'll always have an X column and a check mark column. My check mark column are going to be the things that I've noticed that stuck out to me that we are doing really well. Maybe they're things that we've worked on a lot, and I want to make sure that I take some time to praise those things. So you'll see in this particular game, I'm going to praise our pre-pitch routine, our catcher's pop time, our 0-2 approach. We're getting some Lomos. It's a pitching term. We'll maybe talk about that on another episode. I'm going to take all of these things, and I'm going to make sure that I work these into my post-game praise, right? I'm going to make sure that we talk about that we're doing these things really well, okay? Then on the other side, these are areas that I picked up during the game that I feel like we're not doing a great job of. I feel like we need to take a little bit deeper lateral first steps. Tag plays could be a little bit cleaner. Our OO approach wasn't very good that day, and our pitchers need to improve our put them away score, okay? So I'm going to take all those things, and I'm going to take that into a practice plan, right? So at our next practice, we may do a little trapezoid work to work on deeper lateral first steps. We're going to do a tag play circuit to make sure we're cleaning this up. We're going to work a little early count BP competition to get our hitters better at this 0-0 approach. And then finally, we may put our pitchers into some live BP situations in 0-2 counts and see if they can improve that put them away score. So the whole idea here is just that as games are going on, we're not just a spectator, right? We are still that developmental coach, and we're paying attention to what's going on in the game and what knowledge do I need to pull out of that for later use. You know, a lot of times in the heat of battle, it's hard to pull these points out at a later time, right? They're fresh in your mind right then. Probably not going to be able to go out to my fielders and make a big difference on this in game, but I can make a big difference on it the next time at practice, okay? So again, this is just kind of an example of the back of a lineup card. You use whatever you feel like you can to make this same thing happen. And that's our drill of the week.
Last but not lovely least, and we made it full circle to the one phase that everyone truly desires and loves, and that is competition.
We have to want to win. We all have a desire to win. That's part of athletics, and so we want to have the culture. That's got to come first. We want to have the development. That's got to come next. But then once those two things are in place, then yes, we do have to, at the end of the day, win, right? We want to teach our athletes to win. We want to teach our teams to compete, doing it the right way, right? Doing it the right way. But we do want to win. We do want to compete because, again, if we're going to continue through this game and play for a long time, run that marathon, then I have to be a winner. I have to be a winner. You know, the older that I get, that is more and more valued by a coach. Whether we're talking junior high, or we're talking high school, or we're talking college or pro, I have to be able to help a team win. You know, so we have to build that into our athletes, and it's just important that. As a team, we've done it the right way. We've built that good, solid culture so that whether we are, you know, we're having a bad weekend and we lose every game, or we're having a great weekend and we win every game, that our culture is steady, you know, and that our team's not going to blow up because of a bad weekend or because of whatever it might be. I'm developing my athletes in a way that my players and my parents know that I have their best interest in this marathon in mind. And then now we got to win. So again, it's okay to win. It's okay to go out and compete. Once we find that we are kind of in this winning stage and we are starting to, you know, have some success on the field, now our job as coaches is to continue to develop, continue to push the pace. And we can do that on the field by our competition level. You know, in any youth sport, and again, we can speak very specifically on baseball and softball because we're in it every day, but in any youth sport, you can find different levels of competition. You know, you can find different levels of competition. And so as a coach, we have to be very strategic with how we are, the competition level that we are putting our athletes in. You know, in the early stages, in the culture stages, and in the development stages, we may play a little bit, you know, lower of a competition level because we're developing. We're trying to figure out where we kind of land amongst the region in how our team competes. But then when we get into winning, when we start to see some success, now I can't just be satisfied with just that success at that level. Now I've got to find ways to push the pace a little bit. You know, I've got to find that next level tournament. I've got to find that next level, that next division of league. I've got to find, you know, those things that help us continue to push our athletes to get better, because if we don't push them, then they won't get any better, right? If they don't ever fail, then they're not going to get any better, you know. So we have to win and we want to have success. But then once we as a coach realize, like, okay, we've kind of capped out at this certain level, then we've got to be able to kind of push it, you know, up to the next level and be okay with that. At some point, these youth athletes that we have, they're going to have to go and they're going to have to, try out for their junior high team. They're going to have to make their high school team. They're going to be playing for college coaches one day. And we're doing them a disservice if we're just keeping them in an area where they can just be successful all the time. Because again, when that funnel gets smaller, they'll be in for a rude awakening. So we have to be able to work them through that.
That was honestly my personal experience. So I played Legion ball out in California. Legion ball might have been a little different, however many years ago that was, 15 plus years ago when I was playing. I remember if you made like your A team Legion ball team in the summer, you were like, oh, that's the team I want to play for. It was the summer going in to my senior year, and I got invited to play for a scout team in Los Angeles. And let's just say my first outing when I showed up, I had no reason being there whatsoever. Now I had competed really, really well in Legion ball, and I was a good player. I contributed to my team in high school, and I was playing varsity ball. But all of a sudden, I got introduced to this world, this scout ball world, and all of a sudden, I'm throwing against guys like Mike Moustakis and Dominique Deanna, and I had no reason being there. It was such a rude awakening. I remember my first outing, I went out there and I'm throwing, 83, 84 miles an hour, and I just get shelled. And it was just so embarrassing. And I left, and, I was with my dad, and I was like, should I even go, am I in the right place? Like, do I even belong to play in this? And my dad just told me, he's like, why don't you just give it all you got? Like, literally go out there and, you'll either sink or swim. So right now I was sinking. I went out there with my first outing and I was clearly sinking. Something in my mind switched, like literally switched, and I became all of a sudden like this bulldog. And I kid you not, I literally made a 7-mile-an-hour jump. And I really believe that happened because I played at that scout league, because I was facing the highest caliber of hitters in California. It's the only reason why I went to play collegiate baseball. It's the only reason I went to play professional baseball is because I was thrown into an environment that it was all or nothing. So in episode 3, you actually shared in your 3D topic of the week as what it means to be a 3D coach. And so my question to you is, can you be a 3D coach and can you also win at the same time?
I don't think there's any 3D coach that would tell you that it's either or. A three-dimensional coach, before they were three-dimensional, they were just a coach, and every coach wants to win. So just because we became three-dimensional in our thinking does not mean that now we no longer have that itch to win. We still very much do, and we should. That's what drives this development, drives this competition.
Yep, just win the right way.
That's right.
That's what it is.
That's right.
Hashtag win it right. All right, so we've now officially spent 2 episodes together really diving into this marathon mindset, what it means to run the marathon, and also how to build a team for success. Go ahead now, let's put a bow on it. Let's wrap this thing up. Understand
you're running the marathon, figure out where you are in the steps, and then as we're going, continue to evaluate. There may be times where we need a little more. We need to give a little more love to culture. Maybe sometimes we need to give a little more love to development. And then there may be times where our winning needs to get better. But just once we know where we are and we know the steps, then we can keep rolling. We're now going to go ahead and go to organic of the week. And so you've had to now bring 2 organic items. Which is, how do you feel about that struggle? It's been a struggle. I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy, and so I had to really be creative with my first one. Yeah, dear me. Yeah, which I got a lot of feedback on both sides from. Again, it's a controversial. A lot of deer hunters in this topic, area. So. Yes. All right. These are your rules, so Hey, that's right. That's how we make this show interesting. And we challenge our guests to bring something unique and organic. So, what do you have for us today? Yeah. So today I have some organic salsa, some organic chips and salsa for us today. So, this is an perfect. This is an Aldi find. This is like not open yet. Oh, it's not even open yet. No. Okay, there you go. Do I get to do the honors? Yes. Okay. Here we go. Put it up here. Yep. Oh. Episode 4, Training Room episode, is brought to you by Casa Mamita, organic chipotle and lime salsa. This is definitely not a sponsored episode, but here we go. Cheers, organic salsa.
definitely got like a smokiness to it. It's very smoky. That's where that chipotle comes into play. You know, you got the lime right away. It's not a chunky salsa, which I like. I don't like chunky salsas. Yeah, that's good salsa, man.
Yeah.
Who needs lunch when you can just eat that? Well, it's been really awesome having you here now, back-to-back episodes, and just really diving into this mindset. Thank you for taking the time to come onto the show and to share your passion and your heart for making sure that youth sports, particularly baseball and softball, is doing it the right way, and that everyone's having a healthier mindset.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. It's been a blast. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm excited for more episodes to come. You guys can go ahead and stay updated with us on our social media pages, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Extreme Pride 99. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.